Margaret Chen had worked at Miller's Diner for 32 years. Her hands knew every inch of that counter, every crack in the vinyl booths, every squeak in the kitchen door. At 58, she moved with the quiet efficiency of someone who had learned that rushing through life only makes you miss the good parts. Natural pause. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late October. The lunch rush had passed, leaving behind that peaceful lull when sunlight slants through the windows just right, turning ordinary moments golden. That's when he walked in. Pause. Harold Whitmore didn't look like a billionaire. His tan jacket had seen better days, and his black hat was worn at the edges. He settled into the corner booth with the careful movements of a man who had learned that comfort matters more than appearances. Margaret approached with her usual warmth. After 3 decades of service, she had developed a sixth sense about people. This man carried something heavy, not in his pockets, but in his eyes. "What can I get you today?" she asked, her voice carrying the gentle musicality of someone who genuinely cares about the answer. Pause. "Just coffee," Harold said. "And maybe whatever pie you'd recommend." Margaret smiled. "The apple's good today. But between you and me, the lemon meringue is exceptional. My friend Rosa made it this morning, and she puts love into every slice." "Lemon meringue, then," Harold said, and something in his expression softened. Natural pause. As Margaret returned with the coffee and pie, she noticed Harold staring out the window. There was a loneliness in his posture that she recognized. She had seen it before, in her late husband during his final year, in her own reflection some mornings. "Beautiful day," she offered gently, setting down the plate. Harold looked up at her. Really looked. "Is it? I suppose I haven't noticed." Pause. Margaret pulled a napkin from her apron. "My husband used to say that when you stop noticing beautiful days, that's when you need to notice them most." She didn't wait for a response, just moved to her other tables. But she kept an eye on the corner booth. Harold ate slowly, like someone who had forgotten that food could be more than fuel. When he finished, Margaret brought the check. Harold studied it for a moment, then pulled out his wallet. He placed a $5 bill on top of the $8 tab. Natural pause. Margaret looked at the $5. In her 32 years, she had seen every kind of tipper. The guilty over-tippers trying to buy absolution, the non-tippers who avoided eye contact, the exact changers who calculated to the penny. But this felt different. Pause. She picked up the bill and the check, then did something she rarely did. She sat down across from Harold. "Sir," she said quietly, "this isn't enough to cover your meal." Harold's face remained neutral, watching her, waiting. Margaret continued, her voice still gentle. "But I'm guessing you know that. And I'm guessing there's a reason. You did it this way, instead of just walking out." Natural pause. Something flickered in Harold's eyes. "What do you think that reason is?" Margaret folded her hands on the table. "I think you're testing something. Maybe testing me. Maybe testing yourself. Maybe testing whether kindness still exists in a world that's disappointed you." She slid the $5 bill back across the table. "Here's what I know," she said softly. "This job has taught me that everyone's carrying something. Everyone's fighting a battle we can't see. Some days people need grace more than they need to pay for pie." Pause. "Your meal is $8, Margaret continued. "You gave me 5. I'll cover the other 3 from my own pocket. Not because I have money to spare, I don't. But because 32 years of serving people has taught me that sometimes the cost of kindness is exactly $3. And that's a bargain." Harold stared at her. His hands, which had been steady, began to tremble slightly. Natural pause. "Why would you do that?" he asked, his voice rough with emotion. "You don't know me. I could be testing your honesty. I could be—" "You could be a lot of things," Margaret interrupted gently. "But right now, you're someone sitting in my section who looks like he could use a little grace. That's all I need to know." Pause. Harold closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were wet. "My name is Harold Whitmore," he said quietly. "I own Whitmore Industries. I'm worth, well, more money than makes sense. And I'm dying." Margaret reached across the table and took his hand. She didn't gasp. She didn't apologize. She just held his hand with the same steady warmth she had shown for 3 decades. Natural pause. "I have 6 months," Harold continued. "Maybe less. and I realized I'm 83 years old and I have no one. My wife died 20 years ago. We never had children. I've spent my whole life building an empire, and now I'm wondering what it was all for." He looked down at their joined hands. "My lawyers keep asking me what to do with my estate. Charities, they say. Foundations. Legacy projects. All very impressive. All very empty." Pause. "So I decided to test people," Harold said. "I've been going to diners and restaurants for 3 weeks now, leaving inadequate tips, watching how people react. Most get angry. Some chase me down. Others just talk behind my back." He looked up at Margaret, tears now streaming down his weathered face. "But you," he whispered. "You offered grace." Natural pause. Margaret squeezed his hand gently. "Harold, I'm going to tell you something my mama told me when I was 16 and thought I knew everything." She said, "Margaret, the measure of a person isn't what they do when they're being watched. It's what they do when no one will ever know." She smiled softly. "You've been testing people, but maybe what you really needed was to be reminded that kindness doesn't require an audience. It just requires a choice." Pause. Harold pulled out his handkerchief and wiped his eyes. "I've made a lot of choices in my life, Margaret. Built companies, made fortunes, shaped industries, but I can't remember the last time I made a choice that mattered." "Every choice matters," Margaret said. "You chose to come here today. You chose to test me, and now you get to choose what comes next." Natural pause. Harold sat in silence for a long moment. Then he pulled out his wallet again. This time he removed a business card and a pen. He wrote something on the back and handed it to Margaret. "This is my lawyer's information," he said. "I want you to call him tomorrow. I'm going to establish a foundation, the Margaret Chen Foundation for Everyday Kindness. It will support people like you, servers, nurses, teachers, caregivers, people who show up every day and choose grace." Pause. Margaret tried to hand the card back. "Harold, I know you don't need it," Harold interrupted gently. "That's exactly why you should have it. Because in my entire life, I've never met someone who offered kindness without expecting anything in return. You didn't know who I was. You just saw someone who needed grace." He stood up slowly, placing a $100 bill on the table. "For the pie," he said with a small smile. "And Margaret, thank you for reminding me that the best investments aren't measured in dollars." Natural pause. Margaret watched him walk toward the door, then called out softly, "Harold?" He turned. "Those beautiful days you stopped noticing? They're still there. You just have to look for them." Pause. Harold nodded, his eyes bright. "I think I just found one." Natural pause, reflective. Harold Whitmore passed away 4 months later. The Margaret Chen Foundation for Everyday Kindness now supports thousands of people across the country, individuals who demonstrate small acts of grace in their daily work. But Margaret still works at Miller's Diner 3 days a week. She still covers meals when people come up short. She still offers grace before justice. Pause. Because she understands something that took Harold a lifetime to learn. The truest wealth isn't what we accumulate. It's what we give away in moments when no one's keeping score. Final gentle pause. And sometimes, the most important test we'll ever pass is the one we didn't know we were taking, offered not with perfect answers, but with simple, honest kindness, the kind that changes wills and hearts and lives.